Now, what all of this suggests is that unless we begin to find ways to create institutions as global and interdependent and cross-border as all the challenges I've suggested, we are going to fail to meet these challenges. To put it very simply, we either have to globalize democracy or we have to democratize globalization, one or the other, in order to make democracy an instrument capable of dealing with the problems of the 21st century. And to do that means escaping out of our powerful mythologies and ideologies of independence, of sovereignty, of national states. And one of the problems is democracy for 300 years has been tethered to sovereignty in nation states. And people wonder, can you even have democracy once it leaves the comfortable zone of the nation state where it spent the last 300 years? But if it doesn't, it will fail as an effective government system, and as such, democracy itself will fail. So the question perhaps we can be thinking about and talking about in the coming days here, and as citizens and political leaders also, is what it might mean to democratize globalization or globalize democracy. How do you do that? Most people think their first instinct is to say, well, you do that by getting nations together to talk to one another. The United Nations, the G8, the G20, the Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, the WTO, all of which represent nation states who come together and we hope cooperate. I'm cynical about that because you are in effect reinforcing the power of the very entities that stand in the way of the globalization of democracy. You are asking sovereign nation states to get together and agree to give up what defines them, their sovereignty. And I think we proved at the UN, both in the General Assembly and the Security Council, that that's not going to happen. You've seen it at the G8, that's not going to happen. You see that when nation states are the first representatives of the entities that are supposed to surrender their sovereignty, that's probably not going to work. Which means to me, the globalization of democracy has to be generated the way democracy did originally, not top down, but bottom up. It's not states breaking down their borders, but citizens crossing their borders that can do it. It's NGOs across borders that can do it. It's movements, social movements across borders that can do it. That's why the internet, despite the fact that it has a lot of problems, presents the possibility of cooperation across borders, because one thing you notice, if you go on the internet, you have no idea where the sites are. There are no borders. You don't carry a passport. You don't have to show your passport when you go on the internet. It's already crossing borders. It's also why, for me, if I'm looking for institutional entities to come together and talk to one another across borders, I don't look to states, I look to global cities. Cities are already networked. New York, Hong Kong, Rio de Janeiro, Mexico City, Jakarta, Paris have more in common with one another in many ways than they do with the nation states to which they nominally belong. Multiculturalism wasn't part of democracy's definition, but part of the new interdependent challenge to democracy.